want to welcome everyone here this afternoon as we gather together to remember and to celebrate the life of Janet Marie Rhody. Now, I know she loved Christmas. I don't know how she felt about snow days, but boy, we had a snow day yesterday, and it's wonderful that we're able to be here together today. My name is Rhody Gilchrist, and it is my honor to have been asked to help the family say goodbye to Janet this afternoon. I didn't know Janet, like all of you who are here today knew her, but speaking with Wayne and Michelle this past week and learning more about her kind and loving spirit, I decided that I'd like to open the service with a reading, a poem that I think is very fitting for Janet. I don't know the author, but it's called A Life Well Lived. A life well lived is a precious gift of hope and strength and grace from someone who has made our world a brighter, better place. It's filled with moments, sweet and sad, with smiles and sometimes tears, with friendships formed and good times shared and laughter through the years. A life well lived is a legacy of joy and pride and pleasure, a living, lasting memory our grateful hearts will treasure. Janet's life was a precious gift, and she did make the world a better, brighter place because she was in it. And we're thankful for the life she lived and the memories we shared with her. I know today is not an easy day. It's not easy to say goodbye to someone that you love. But that's why it's so important to be here, to be together this afternoon, to be with others who share your deep sorrow and feel your great sense of loss. There is strength in being together, and my hope is that by being here, each one of you will find comfort and support from the people around you and from the words that you hear spoken this afternoon. Everyone here today is united in a deep sense of loss, but we're also united in a real love for Janet. Each one of you comes with your own memories and your own connections to this wonderful woman. She was a loving wife and mother, a devoted grandmother and Gigi, a dear sister, sister-in-law, aunt, and a very good friend. Because Janet was so well loved, it really makes a day like today so difficult. There will be tears, there is sadness, because she was an important part of the family and she will be missed. But fortunately, we can find healing in sharing memories of those happy times and even those sad times that we spent together. We often don't realize the impact of our actions and our words on someone else. Sometimes something as simple as a smile, an encouraging word, makes such a huge difference. Janet made a difference to her family, her friends, and in her work. I'm sure that there have been many stories shared with the family this past week, and I hope there will be many more shared in the days to come. If you go this afternoon, everyone's invited to the Purple Grove Community Center for a time of togetherness after the service, and so I hope that you'll take the time to share those stories with the family. And for anybody watching the service, which is being recorded, I hope they will pick up the phone and call and say, you know, I remember Janet doing this or doing that, because those stories really make a difference when she's gone. It's important to remember the precious times that you've shared with someone that you love. And even though it may hurt, it's important. There's comfort in sharing these stories. And so at this time, I'm going to start with both Michelle and Mandy are going to share some stories, but I'm going to ask Michelle if she would start first. And in between their stories, they have chosen a song that is special to Janet, and so we're going to take a moment just to listen to that. You can hum along if you like, but I'm going to ask Michelle to come forward and share some memories with us.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We all expect the tears, so we'll see if I can get through this thing. I know all of you here knew Mom and love her very much, and you have your own memories that you treasure. I think she must have been the natural caregiver at birth, but she is always willing to make others a priority, to help them, always worried about them first. Not pausing to concern herself with what she was going through. She could be having the worst day in her life, and she'd still call somebody else to see how they were doing. She also loved her Christmas. I think most of you have probably seen videos or have heard stories about the decorations she would always put up. And it got harder for her to put them up over the years, and so the last couple, yes, we tried to help her. So we got about half up this year. That still took a while. So we had left them up still, and Mom had been lamenting, that it was time to start putting the Christmas decorations away. This was probably 3 weeks ago or so, and she was starting to feel, not feel so good. And Dad turned around and looked at her and said, "You know what? You put my mirror back up here where I can see people coming into the driveway. You can leave them up as long as you want. It really doesn't matter." So the Christmas decorations are still up. So if anyone pops by the house and wants a memory, she's still there, a whole lot of her. And it's funny how when you go through this, things get shared and little memories that you may not have remembered or things you've forgotten about. And came across a picture of my mom, and my grandson, and great-grandson, her grandson Silas, done this picture of this big floor puzzle. And there was a picture, and unfortunately she wasn't in it. But it reminded me of all the times with all her grandchildren. She loved to get down on the floor. She loved to do puzzles with them. And she was just good with them, and I think that's where the kids got their ability for puzzles. But Dad reminded me that growing up, that her mom had loved to do puzzles, and her mom in her younger days had a love of puzzles. And it brought me back because I hadn't remembered that. And I know I remembered seeing in the old farmhouse big puzzles, like those 2,000 ones out on the table in this process of being finished. So grateful for those memories that came. She always loved to bake and decorate. Growing up, she was giving of herself. She would always, for each special occasion at school when we'd have a party, she would bake an individual cookie for every single kid in our classes. Individually decorate them up to heaven knows what we're still on the farm. And she would also often at Christmas then make a gingerbread house with a big scene to raffle off. Poor woman, one year, we were all in separate classes. I think she had to do 120 cookies overnight and decorate them. And just so many little memories like that. She loved baking cookies for the grandchildren. And to this day, they still enjoy doing that. Heck, even Oliver comes up to Grandma's and he makes brownies. So it's like going, "Hey, I used the last box of brownies." So, we made sure after Mom passed, there was another box of brownies in the kitchen cupboard for him to cook. He made them this morning, on the condition he had to clean up the mess afterwards. And I mentioned the Christmas and decorating and loving the holidays. Pretty sure I believe that love of Christmas came from her sister Andy. Because I still remember we'd make trips down to Godridge to help Andy finish setting up her Christmas things. Mom loved to do that. She just loved to give of herself and to make sure everybody was doing better. And then there was involvement in the Women's Institute. I know she had so many memories of going to the different trips you guys did, and she loved each and every one of you from the community. And we know you will all miss her too. It's going to be different without her, but I know she'll live on in your hearts. And so with that, I'd like to leave a little quote from a book from the Wheel of Time series that we used to read and talk about, and Dad would always share things with Mom about it in part. And it goes like this, as we say goodbye. May you shelter in the palm of the Creator's hand, and may the final embrace of the Mother welcome you home.
So Michelle did a fabulous job of holding the waterworks at bay. Pretty good. And she can speak about a lot of things that I had planned on touching upon. A lot of the things that I remember about Mom, her compass to what you had to say. I think, when I think about qualities about my mom, I think about a big heart. And how she wore it so closely to her sleeve. And how she shared bits and pieces of her heart every day in every way. And sometimes she did it without people even knowing. Mom was always so gracious and giftful and generous with her time, her energy, her money, anything she could give to people. I remember many times she'd have me come by her side and run out on another errand for her because she forgot to pick up something for someone on a birthday, or someone had a bad day, so she'd say, oh, I'm late, I had to stop and pick some flowers on the side of the road, and she'd have dropped them off and been stuck for a moment. She didn't have thought I was stuck, but she would be delivering something on the way to come save another soul, and heading off to an event. So the big heart, she everything she did. She had a big heart for her family. For her, family was everything. It wasn't something that you drove towards, or you came to, or it just was everything for her. And thankfully, she has made it so that we all in our family feel that way. I think we're nicely separated in space most of the time, but when we're separated in space, we're certainly close right here. So she's made so many large impacts on our life and how we live our life every day, that even though she's not going to be here with us, she'll be here with us in everything that we do. So some of the things that I am reminded by Mom, I will be reminded of by Mom, continue to. Christmas is of course the one that Michelle talked about in terms of other than family and friends and so on. Certainly her love for helping her pay her residence at work and her day trips that she would, I often think of her as a day tripper, as a Beatles song, a day tripper. And every time I hear it, it doesn't pertain to her. It's in terms of in the total message, but Mom was always be bopping in a car and have a cargo travel to the next best event. And she would take her energy, her bubbliness, carrying her with her when she went. She enjoyed lilacs in the springtime, daisies. I can think of a million things in the spring that just, will remind me of her, listening to the birds, the hummingbirds that she used to feed all day, all summer and spring long. She'd be constantly figuring out which one was empty and trying to fill that up. And if she wasn't doing that, she'd be chasing the flowers and trying to poke off all the dead heads from her purple and white and red petunias. And she'd be watering her begonias. So definitely a nurturer. In all areas. As a child, some of my first memories are of Mom at the old farmhouse. She would have boxes beside the big black stove that Dad made, and there'd be little pigs that didn't quite, have the great will to survive. And she'd have them in there, keeping them warm, and we would drop them with droppers of milk. And the same with all the kittens that were, not able to make it on their own without a little bit of help. So that's the other quality that I think of with Mom, is just a nurturer. So she nurtured, life for her grandkids and animals and plants and everything she could touch. She really tried really hard to just make everything better and help them grow, even if it was just from a distance. So I don't know that I can really go along much more other than to say thank you all for coming, thanking you all for enriching her life so much, because she truly valued every one of you, and everyone has their own spot that she had in her heart for them. And I hope that you have a spot for her, and that you'll continue to have her live on in your life, and so you can help to make every day brighter, smiling, and all the good things that she projected. Okay? Thanks very much for coming, everyone.
Mary Ann is also going to speak, and so we're just going to listen to this song before Mary Ann comes up.
Took a simple rocket flies from the sun through the day of tea from the cup. Packed up the photo album that you had made, memories of a life that's been loved. Took the get well SIM cards and stuffed animals, poured the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down, but Mom, there's a tear every time I blink. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up, but I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved. So I sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, you'll say hallelujah, you're home. Fluff the pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up. Folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he tried, then put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. Now that I see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived. So I sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, you say hallelujah, you're home. Hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. You got to see the person I have become. Spread your wings and I know when God took you back, you said hallelujah, you're home.
So my sisters have most eloquently covered so much of what made up my mother. There are some memories growing up because she grew up in such a big family and there was always so many people around. She thrived on having people around. When we were kids living in the country, she would throw baking parties and lunch, St. Patty's Day parties, birthday parties, having friends over to swim in the pool. When we moved to the city and we were in high school, there was nothing more than our mother loved to see us and all of our friends descend like locusts at lunchtime to come to the house. We would eat all of her baking, cheese sticks, and everything else there was in the house. I think she had to go shopping every other day because there were like 10, 12 of us there. The house was always full of people. I'm sure a little more than Dad would like it sometimes because it'd be a lot louder than he really wanted it to be. But she had such a love for being around people. And her love and passion for garage sales since we were little kids. The rule was though, if you were not up and in that car by 7 o'clock in the morning, you could wave at the brake lights going behind. Because if you were late and she missed that one early bird sale, let me tell you, we were in her bad books for a long time. So everything as a is going to be so different. But as my daughter said, and my cousin Rhonda, she was an angel on earth, and everybody was so lucky to have them be a part of her life. And she will be greatly, greatly missed by everybody. But she's always going to be with us, and we will always hold her dear and near to our hearts. I will miss sitting on the deck once the weather got warm enough to have that morning coffee. She sure was grumpy when the weather was cold and we couldn't go outside. She wanted to know what was wrong with Mother Nature. So, on that note, I would like to say thank you to everybody as well for coming out. And I look forward to seeing you afterwards if you can make it over to Purple Grove to have some fellowship. It's a soothing place to have it since that's where we got married in September. So, it's a happy memory to be there as well. Thank you very much. I will remember you. Will you remember me? And let your love pass you by.
I want to thank Michelle and Mandy and Marianne for those beautiful memories that they have shared with us this afternoon. You truly were blessed to have her for a wife and a mother. I also want to thank you for your music choices. I sometimes think music, the lyrics and the melodies can touch your heart in ways that words do not. So thank you for those, that was lovely. Earl Grollman is a grief counselor. He's an American and he's done a lot of writing about grief. And in one of his writings, he said, "Grief is not a disorder, a disease, or a sign of weakness. It's an emotional, physical, and spiritual necessity. It is the price you pay for love. And he concludes by saying, the only cure for grief is to grieve. Love and grief are so tightly intertwined. There will always be things that remind you of Janet and her impact on your life. The lessons that she taught, the moments that you shared together, and the love that you exchanged will always be a part of you. You'll move forward with your memories of her, and you will certainly feel her presence and be reminded of her in the things that you hear and the things that you see and the things that you do in the days ahead. There have been a whole raft of books written about grief and websites about grief that offer support as you travel through the journey of grief. But at times like this, in moments of sorrow, many people find strength and comfort in the words of the Bible. And when I talked to people this week and I heard words like loving, kind, generous, selfless being used to describe Janet, I couldn't help but think about Paul's writing in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And then Michelle sent me a note that she had gotten from her Uncle Roger and Aunt Kathy. And in that note, they had written, when we think of Janet, Corinthians 13 comes to mind. So I knew I was on the right track. I knew that I had chosen the right passage for today. It's a reading that you might hear at a wedding, but I think you'll see that it really is appropriate for today because it talks about the kind of love that she exhibited. And I'd like to read parts of that passage now. It says, no matter what I say, what I believe, and what I do, I'm nothing without love. Love is patient, love is kind, it is not jealous, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it does not easily anger, it does not keep a record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil but rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. There are three things that will remain until the end of time: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. I'm sure in many ways you too can see Janet reflected in that passage. She lived her life as a kind, patient, compassionate person who really loved the people around her. She continued to hope and to persevere as she went through the ups and downs of her life. From the time Earl and Martha Williams welcomed Janet Marie into the world on May 17, 1952, Janet lived her life full of love. She first learned about unconditional love from her siblings, Ted, Eleanor, Gary, Roger, Joanne, Andy, and Susie. With that many playmates, oh, and Roger, I think I missed him, there's enough to fit in there. With that many playmates, I'm sure that life was busy, but also very fun. One of Janet's best friends over the last 60 years of her life, Anne Labor, who's with us today, remembers spending many days swimming and skating and walking and playing on Janet's swing set when they were younger. These two girls must have had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit because from an early age, they figured out how to make a little extra money. Anne remembers that she and Janet would go along and pick up beer bottles. And then they would have her dad take them and get the money, and then the two of them would have money to have a little party. Janet grew up, she met the love of her life, Wayne, thanks to mutual friends. And it didn't take long before they realized that they really enjoyed spending time together. They fell in love and they were married on April 21st, 1973. They happily welcomed Michelle, Marianne, Mandy, and Daniel into the family. And for almost 49 years, Janet and Wayne shared a good life together. As we heard, she was always a nurturer and a caregiver. Spending time with her children, her husband, and doing things for them and with them was one of Janet's greatest joys. She was a great cook and an incredible baker, and in some ways cooking and baking were important ways that Janet showed her love to the people around her, to show that she cared about others. She always tried to make sure that she had good hot meals ready for people to enjoy, and perhaps because she came from such a large family, she never seemed to mind having an extra person at the table. I love the fact that there was always room for one more. Her door was always open, and people came through it. Neighborhood children enjoyed spending time together. Many of you enjoyed spending time with Janet. She was always welcoming, she was always kind, and by the sounds of it, she was a lot of fun. As a grandmother, Janet was in her element. She lit up when she talked about her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. She loved playing and spending time with them. As long as people were together, Janet was happy. Janet took her love for people and her compassion for others outside the home when she worked as a nurse, both at Parkwood Hospital in London and later at Bruce Lee Haven in Walkerton. Her kindness, her care, and her compassion were appreciated by the residents and their families. I found it interesting to read a comment in the online condolences. I sometimes go to the funeral website and just see what people have written. And on that website, one of the people who worked with Janet in Walkerton has written, "I will remember Janet as a positive inspiration to staff members at Bruce Lee Haven. She collaborated with us, and as a group, we presented our constructive ideas and criticisms. She went over and above routine care for our residents." What a beautiful tribute. She loved her work, she loved her community, she connected well with people around her, often offering words of support and encouragement to the people she met up with. There were so many happy times in Janet's life, but we all know that she journeyed through some difficult times as well. We can't begin to understand why Janet had to endure such tough health challenges along the way. There's always that question, why do bad things happen to good people? And I can't answer that. But I do know that there is hope for better things to come. Janet sometimes spoke of her dad and her mom and her two siblings being in heaven. And I know there are a lot of different beliefs about what might happen after our life on earth ends. Obviously, no one knows for sure. Nobody that has any experience can ever come back and tell us what it's like. It is a mystery. Personally, I like to believe that there is something more. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life." I like to think that there is a place prepared for Janet in heaven. Today we want to believe that she is there, reunited with the loved ones who've gone before her in that place made just for her. And I want to leave you this afternoon with a poem by Linda Ellis. You may have heard it before, it's been around quite a few years, but I really like it. I really like how it emphasizes what you fit into your life makes such a huge difference. So it's called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that she spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved her know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters most is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and to love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this little dash may only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read, when your life's actions are rehashed, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? Janet's special dash did not last nearly long enough, but she lived that dash with love and with strength and with a sense of purpose. She lived her life with a generous, open heart, never hesitating to help others when they needed it. If each one of us lives our dash as well as Janet lived hers, then the world will be a better place. It's true that Janet's no longer with us physically, but she will live on through the memories that she leaves behind. She has left her legacy, and her family and her friends will carry it forward. She encouraged you, and she showed you all to live your lives with love and determination. So let's go forward now and encourage others by the way we choose to live our dash. I'd like to just offer a word of prayer, if you would join me in prayer. Loving God, we thank you for the life and the love that Janet shared with each one of us here today. For her, we know pain and suffering has ended, and the fear of death has passed. But those who loved her are left to deal with this void that has been created by her passing. Grant to us all now the grace to turn back to our lives and our tasks with calm hearts, minds at peace, and a renewed faith. Lord, we would ask that you would help us to remember the wonderful woman whose death we mourn today, but whose life we also celebrate. Janet will always be special to us, and she will hold a special place in our hearts and our minds. May you grant courage and strength and hope to us today and always. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. As we conclude our time together, I hope that each one of you will leave this place with memories of a life very well lived and a woman so well loved. And before we leave, I would just like to take a minute to listen to one of Wayne and Janet's favorite songs, one of those songs that was important, and it is Good Night, Sweetheart.
Sweetheart.
as you go forward, may you feel the love and the support of those around you. May every tear you shed, every word you share, and every memory you treasure help to bring healing. And may the one who walks beside you reach out now and hold your hand. Amen. So please do remember that the family would invite you to the Purple Grove Hall. You can ask for directions if you haven't been to Purple Grove before.